Well, it's good to see you, Zach and Marla and Alan. Well, I want to tell you a story because I want to share the explanation of Scripture before we talk about a concept that's in the Bible days, when people had dinner, they were very conscious of who is more important than other people. Isn't that horrible? And the way that you might be more important than somebody else would be if you had more money, or if you were like one of the leaders of the religious group, if you were a priest or a Pharisee or a Sadducee, if you were important as a religious leader, then you got a better seat. So they would sit in sort of a square table, and instead of sitting at chairs, just let me finish telling the story, Zach, and I'll Janet. When they would sit around the table, they would lean on pillows, so they didn't sit at chairs the way we sit. So the most important places were reserved near the head table, wherever the host was sitting. So if you came into the dining area, you would probably sit according to your own status. And Jesus tells the story of some people who actually had lower status, but thought they had higher status. And they went to sit in the important chairs, and they had to be asked to move. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? You go and you sit in the chair, and someone says, "I'm sorry, you're not important enough to sit in these chairs. We're going to have to ask you to sit in the back." How would you feel if somebody did that? Marla's just totally outraged. You would punch them, wouldn't you? That would be a Christian.
Pete and Marla should probably work.
Well,
I'll probably just walk to another chair or something.
walk to another
I
chair.
don't want to just look at it.
Right. Well, what Jesus said is, it's better to just assume a place of humility. What is humility? Do you know what humility is? What it means? No. It's actually a good thing. To be
That's
humble.
like that. You're thinking of like humiliate.
Yeah, that's what exactly that. The word humiliate. To humiliate somebody means to make them feel bad, to embarrass them, to make fun of them. But to be humble, in other words, to have humility, just means, it doesn't mean that you think that you're not as good as everybody else. It just means that you don't assume that you're better than anybody else. Let's say you were a really famous person, like, name it famous. Bill Gates. Bill Gates is actually a pretty good example. Bill Gates has a lot of money, right?
Yes. He donates about like a half of it to charity.
Right. He's made a commitment with several other billionaires that they will.
Like Donald Trump.
I'm not sure Donald Trump has made this particular pledge.
He's the complete opposite.
Well, we're not going to do that. But somebody who's really famous and would have the right to actually be treated special. Like, say, Jesus, right? If Jesus came to your party, would you give Jesus like an important seat?
Yes. If it was his birthday, I would give him Harry.
Yes, you would go all out if Jesus came to your house. What do you think Jesus would do then?
Sit at the lowest.
Jesus would sit at the lowest. Not because he didn't have a right to sit up high, but it's just a matter of not necessarily making yourself lower, but just recognizing that everyone else around you also has the same right to sit in those seats, right? So to be humble, what if I told you, Marlo, you are the most phenomenal singer I have ever heard. Oh my goodness, I can't. If you were humble, what would you say to me? She's embarrassed. Well, if you were not humble, you would say, "Oh yes, Pastor Terry, I know that I have a phenomenal voice, and how observant of you to realize how talented I am." Now, if Marlo is humble, what Marlo will say, "Oh, thank you, Pastor Terry. God's given me this gift. I really enjoy singing it. It's so nice of you to say that you enjoy my voice, right? So when we're humble, it's not that we don't take credit for what we do. It's just that we don't assume that it's like more important or better than anybody else. Does that make sense? No? What doesn't make sense about it?
I would say something, but I'm so embarrassed I'm not.
Okay. So, is it okay to say that you're good at things? Do you think that's okay? To say, I'm really good at playing ball? Yeah, absolutely.
Don't recognize it.
Just that's it. Ellen, you're a theologian in training. It's fine to have confidence in ourselves and in our gifts. What we don't want to do is brag about it to the point where other people feel that we are putting ourselves in a position that makes them feel bad. Or maybe we think that they're not as good as we are.
That they're unimportant.
That they're unimportant. We say every week in our church that all means all. And part of what we mean by that is that all means all. Every person that God has made has value, deserves respect and dignity. And while He has given each one of you special gifts, He wants you to be humble. He doesn't want you to go around bragging or assuming that you should have a special place in mind. Have your parents taught you the magic words?
He's right there.
Oh, yes, they have. That's very good. There are people that I see on my college campus who jump in front of people in line, who push people off of the sidewalk just to get past them. This frustrates me to no end. But God has reminded us that every one of His creatures is beautiful, worth dignity and respect.
And we're like priceless.
And we're priceless. And we should therefore be polite and respectful and kind to who? Everyone, right? So, are you going to be humble
Sure.
as opposed to arrogant? Which one do you think Jesus would want us to do? Humble. All right. Well, hopefully you learned something about humility today. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Time for Sunday school.